Today on Feedback, Carmageddon is not just a game, but an actual existence for us here in Los Angeles. We'll be talking about how we're going to survive the closing of the 405 freeway because, of course, that's what you really care about. Team Bondi, they seem to be in a little bit of hot water in terms of how they were treating their employees. We're going to discuss how much is too much work in the video game industry. Of course, Kevin Kelly, we like to send him places, so we sent him to Vegas to get in a pool and enjoy games from Sony Online Entertainment. And we're going to talk about how you survive the Summer Games drought. Are there enough games out there? If not, how do you get by? Are there games you've never heard about? We're going to show you some you may have never considered. And we're going to talk a little bit about our personal skepticisms about big games coming out in 2011. All right, that's Feedback. You want to see it, but you really want to hear our new theme song. Here's a taste.
Feedback. Video games.
Yeah, I know. I think that is the best theme song that I've heard.
It's a little long.
It needs an 80s synth underneath it.
One thing we need to attribute this musical genius to the one and only Stephen Johnson.
Hi, Internet.
As many have said, you have the lyricism of a Burt Bacharach, but you really have the dulcet tones of a Carla Bruni.
Right.
And I really, I'm glad that we have you on board. Not just as a guest.
So many skills.
But as a composer.
Oh, thank you so much. I hear the pig from Toy Story sometimes.
Ham? Is his name Ham? Ham?
Not even a little bit.
Yeah, I see that too. But it's when you sing, you really come alive.
Paul Giamatti.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. A little of that.
Just don't try to challenge him at Joy Division in
Exactly.
in Rock Band. He's
You're
number
number
13 in the
Number
world.
13 on the
He's
leaderboard,
told
baby.
us a couple of times
With a
he's number
bullet.
13.
13. Joy Division's level tear us apart.
He
Pro keyboard.
He jumped 50 people overnight, so I
Yeah.
don't know how that
Really?
happens. But
100%ed it. I don't know how I can go higher.
See, I thought I was being facetious, and now I
No.
feel that I was being earnest.
He's
It's a
actually
good
got
thing
skills.
that's the beauty of sarcasm.
encouraging his career.
It gives you cover.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the week of July 10th. Obviously, many of our viewers don't live in Southern California, but as is true with everything in Southern California, our navel gazing will become the gazing of the rest of the country.
It better be.
We're about to experience Carmageddon.
Carmageddon.
Which has no relation. Who published that game?
That's a good
think it was
question.
the
Well, there's a
mayor.
new Carmageddon coming, which is important to remember.
Which I guess, and I'm probably going to be debating with you on this. I never felt that there was a real sense of absence. That we didn't have Carmageddon.
Where is Carmageddon?
I mean, yes, games are more limited in scope back in the old days, but even that just felt kind of flimsy in terms of what
I have to admit, I had a secret addiction. You come home from work, you run over pedestrians, kill other drivers. It was kind of...
It was before GTA.
That's true.
Redneck Rampage had an end to the level. There was at least a sense of goal that seemed to be, sorely lacking in my Carmageddon
Is
experiences.
that right? That there was what was the goal?
You could
Like,
win
what
a
was it?
race. And
You got
Oh,
points.
races.
Yeah.
It was based on the idea
was
that
like Death Race
you're making
2000
points
or
for the
whatever.
people that you run over. Now, the N64 version, because Nintendo, always protecting us from harmful things,
Yes, thank you,
did not
Nintendo.
allow actual pedestrians, so they were zombies.
Oh,
Oh,
well,
I don't
there you
know.
go.
Did they have
You're
zombies?
doing something helpful.
You're doing-
Were
yeah.
there zombie nuns in the N64 version, or were they just straight zombies? Because that was always the big point gain in the original
I played the
Carmageddon.
PC version,
If
so I
you're
don't
a
even know.
nun and you die and become a zombie, are you still a nun?
You just have like the tattered
Yeah.
remains of the outfit.
I don't know that
Doesn't
you
really
still
matter
have
Yeah,
in there.
does that violate your marriage vows? That's a good
exactly.
question.
Are you still holy?
There's theological implications as whether are you still a bride of Christ?
Yeah, you know what?
Once you're undead?
We need to find someone.
You
who
might just
can really-
explode out of the dichotomy.
Yeah,
Deep, man.
I'll go call the Catholic League right after this because I think they'd be really happy to answer the phone for me.
Well, we will have a history of Carmageddon, the entire series, on Friday. You can check on the
really?
site.
Oh, that's
yes,
fun.
so come back and read it.
Good.
Enjoy it while you're
Obviously,
stuck in traffic.
For those who don't know, Carmageddon means that one of the largest and most important freeways in Southern California, the 405,
The
and
nation?
probably the largest pipeline from the valley to the west side of Los Angeles, will be shut down for the entirety of a weekend, leaving people going, I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, because we're all kind of homebodies to begin with, this is not really posing a terrible threat, is it?
I live over on the east side, so I'll be enjoying art walks and vegan
Yeah,
restaurants.
This don't
Valley.
bother me at all. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'll walk to my Earth Cafe. You can walk to your Earth Cafe.
go.
We'll just get on our laptops and talk to each other. We'll sip some tea.
Yeah, it's not like we need another excuse to stay in and play games. I
Yeah,
mean,
no.
this is,
No.
this
we
is,
got one,
this is
though.
redundant for us.
We got one.
Of
wasn't
course, as
leaving
we'll be
anyway.
discussing, if they could have had Carmageddon happen, like, say, when Skyrim came out, that would have been nice. We are
Any excuse you
experiencing...
can find.
This is Carmageddon Part 1. They're doing one half of the freeway. They have to
Right.
do the other half at some other point. So what should we suggest?
Yeah,
November
let's-
11th?
Let's,
and-
let's call the mayor.
November
I
11th.
mean, if you want to get the nerd
It's a good
platform,
time. It's
yeah.
like before the holidays.
That's
I
right.
like that.
It's a good time.
Families aren't in town.
If
yeah.
I were putting out the reboot of Carmageddon, I would put it out during
Yeah, who's
actual
That's some
Carmageddon.
free-
Come on.
publishing
free-
that, and
Am
are
I
they
right?
aware they're
That's a
missing
lot
one
of
of the
free
best
publicity
marketing
right there.
opportunities ever?
Yeah, because
Yeah,
if you
it
Google
totally
Carmageddon
is.
right now, you know it's not coming up.
Yeah, exactly. So let's chat a little bit about news. Steve, there was an article on IGN about Team Bondi. They made L.A. Noire.
Right.
It was published by Rockstar Games. There were some reports coming out. This seems to now be almost a perennial event every time there is a new Rockstar game, that the people who are working on the game in Australia, Team Bondi, things weren't too good down there.
No, according to some unnamed employees that worked on the game, it was a sweatshop style situation, and they had crunch level working hours for a year. There were reports of like 100-hour weeks, I think, and
Wow.
and like I don't even know that there's 100 hours in a week, let alone to work.
Yeah, I think there are actually. Yeah,
do that
yeah. There's
math.
actually over 100, Stephen.
Yeah, perhaps.
Well, yeah. The attitude of management was, and I'm quoting here, "It's a privilege to work for us, and if you can't hack it, you should leave."
That sounds like Ken Kutaragi.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes, I have something very expensive. Work harder to buy it.
You're entitled to buy it.
they said that the upper management actually McNamara, who I can't remember his first name, but he is the
Brendan.
writer and
Yes,
designer
yes.
of the game. He said, if you want to do a 9-to-5 job, you should be in another business. And he also said nobody worked more than him, which is kind of important.
I
In
mean,
a way.
Yeah.
it's one of those. Look, we all work for a large company.
Sure.
Disgruntlement happens, frequently, and we don't work on the same type of cycle as game development. But it's not too surprising that negative things come out. I remember hearing this at the end of BioShock. We definitely heard this at the end of Red Dead Redemption, where there
Yep.
were some layoffs that actually happened here. I mean, what I haven't been able to glean is, are the hours that are worked by Team Bondi that distinct from what is considered to be something that's beyond the norm in terms of the hours most people put in at major game devs?
No, it seems like if you work production, you work longer hours than this. But I mean, not for as long as a period of time. That's what's
Yeah,
important.
That's the
That-
period of time.
that
It was
did
like
go on for
a
a
very
year.
Went on
long
for a
time,
long
yeah.
time.
Crunch.
Although
Because
I wonder,
if you work on a film, like if you work on a movie, you work those kinds of hours, but you work on those
2,
kinds of
3
hours
months.
until the movie's over.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
And then you get a couple months off
Yeah.
until
Well,
your next movie
I wonder if part of this is the fact that they are in Australia, European, and countries down in other parts of the world don't adhere to this overtime
get like 6 weeks of
mentality.
vacation a
They have
year.
a lot of
Yeah,
vacation.
that's true.
When I worked in Australia on Farscape, which is my nerd cred right there, at 5 o'clock every day,
Nice.
bam, we were done, and everyone went to the pub to drink. And it was just their.
Well, that's what I feel like. The
I think these people are
reaction-
kind of complaining
The
about
reaction
that.
on, especially on our website, has been like, "Grow up, guys! Like this is we all have to work a lot of hours." It's not been as positive as I expected.
If they're, I mean, I guess what I sort of judge it against is what I do know is, Naughty Dog worked really, 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 really hard on Uncharted 2.
Right.
And the results are quite evident.
Absolutely.
And from some of the stories I gleaned, it was like, wow,
Yeah.
that's and you didn't know if it was going to work. I mean, because they are shooting for the moon there. And at least what I'm hearing in these statements is something that I think you're right. It sounds culturally so distinct. That's like, well, this seems a little bit commonplace. Now, once again, the game industry is notorious for this. The large lawsuit against EA and what they were doing sounded very legitimate, that people were being overworked. There were these, pretty much widowed wives that were
Right.
sitting waiting for their husbands
Yeah.
to come home. That, I mean, there is a pressure cooker. Now, it sounds like the IGDA, the International Game Developers Association, has at least found this to be notable enough that they want to look into
They're
it.
looking into it. But what they're going to find when they look into it, who knows?
yeah.
Yeah, I know.
And what can IGDA actually
I know.
do
Yeah,
if they
that's-
I was
find?
wondering that
Well,
same
this
thing.
is
I
this
don't
whole
know.
union
Well,
thing. That
yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean-
is that what's going to come out of this? That's what I wonder.
Which is something that look, I don't agree with every union out there, but I completely understand the value of unions, and there is a way in which. I don't like the statement from McNamara. It's a pleasure to work here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if you at least
that's-
acknowledge that,
yeah.
like, I really
There-
appreciate all the work you did. Thank you. Like
There
that,
were some attitudes back when I was at the World of Tech TV that there was somehow an honor to be on television, and we seem to violate that whole
is, yeah.
bartering thing that we're supposed to be
It's
doing.
kind of like personally a load of although I am very glad to work at G4 TV.
Oh,
I love it here.
I said Tech
consider it a
TV. Actually,
privilege.
that has not been said at G4. I want to clarify that.
no, it's true. But I think what
New
also is
mandate.
going on here that's important is the relationship between Team Bondi and Rockstar, which, according to
That's what- yeah.
other unnamed sources, is shaky to the point where Rockstar is reportedly not going to be publishing Team Bondi's
Well, and then
game.
also some statements that Rockstar feels that they really took charge of the game in its final year or two to get it back on track. There's definitely some stuff out there in the ether. Once again, it's not being sourced to anybody in particular. It just sounds like recriminations. But the one thing I did feel when I saw the end of the game, and I sat there because just out there, people who make video games, I actually will sit through the entire credits, despite that they beat that. It's like that third Matrix movie in terms of how long they are. But every single Rockstar team on the planet was listed.
Yep.
It did. I don't have a memory of that necessarily happening in previous Rockstar efforts, and there seems to be a consistency there.
Yeah, that's a good point. But then there was some talk from some of the people that there were people, and I don't remember which companies, but there were a lot of employees that weren't listed that should have been, apparently, or that they say.
They were petitioning to get their names added to the credits.
Yeah.
Well, I guess this all comes on the heels of Reefer Madness coming out, which is the new DLC, which I'm actually quite excited to go home and play.
Me too.
So-
Well, that's the thing. Like, should we feel differently? Should we feel differently about LA Noire? Should we boycott? Does anybody feel?
Yeah, it's funny because we talked about that the other day, and you were saying you don't buy Nike products anymore because of the whole sweatshop thing.
Yeah,
And
that was just. I was like, man, that's
Right,
a choice.
yeah.
Yeah, but
I
that's
like buying things that were
look.
made in
That's
sweatshops.
I would have to say, with all due respect to people who may have had a tough time over there at Team Bondi, sweatshop practices of Nike in a place like Indonesia with underage
Children,
labor strikes me as
absolutely.
decidedly
Very, very
different
different.
than an industrialized nation where you
Yeah.
provided healthcare and all those necessary things.
I
But
mean,
that's
yeah.
such a tough call. Like, if you don't like the practices of the company that's putting out the product, what do you do?
well,
about
remember
it? Like,
recently when the CEO of GoDaddy was seen killing an elephant on a safari?
oh my god!
And so many people twittered about it, and they were like, "Oh my god, I'm using a new web hosting."
Where are
about
you
that.
allowed to kill elephants?
In Africa, you can go
No,
on an
you
actual
can't.
safari.
No,
well,
you-
he
shoot an
shot and
elephant?
killed
If
an
you
elephant.
did it
There's
on
video.
GoDaddy, you
There's
can.
video of
Yeah,
it
there
too.
is
Yeah,
video.
and it was a real
I'm
elephant.
sorry,
Totally
that's
forgot about
douchebag.
that.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Oh my, really?
And he
Yeah.
didn't kill the elephant in the room. I mean, I'm talking about a real
Well, I
elephant.
mean, I made a
The name
point
of
of
his
never
company is
knowing what the hell that
GoDaddy.
website's all about,
Gross.
and now I
and their
will make-
commercials are all about boobs. So.
Yeah, GoDaddy, you're a douchebag anyway. We knew that from the start.
Personally, I mean, what, did this guy come from American Apparel? I mean, what the hell?
Yes, it was his next job after that.
I view most animals as just trying to kill me. So hunting is self-defense as far as I'm concerned, because animals are just really bad. I mean,
Yeah, they're bad.
They'll
That
kill
elephant
you.
was looking at
Well,
him
see,
funny for sure.
Elephant would have killed him if he.
I have been
I'm
working
telling
under
you.
the assumption that the bears are in cahoots with the raccoons to finally do an urban invasion.
I think that was a Brendan Fraser
no.
movie.
That also sounds like a video game. Yeah, it does sound like a talking animal film,
It
doesn't
was.
it?
It was one actually that came out. It was really
It's Zookeeper
terrible.
2.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, you were talking about animals?
Yes.
Moving on.
Sure, we kitty cat on my
Let's
script.
let's
So
go
long,
to a
elephants.
question of the week. I mean, I just saw trucks coming down from the Russian River Valley. This is from MRX 3009. With reports of the terrible working conditions at Team Bondi coming out in the past couple weeks, what can gamers do to discourage that kind of environment in game studios? Does purchasing LA Noire encourage other studios, right to your point, Emily, to similar infinite crunch mentality? On the flip side, does the negative publicity from these stories do enough to discourage other developers from following suit? But I think this is a tough one. When I look at the Red Dead scenario and I look at the LA Noire scenario, you're also dealing with games that have a development cycle far greater than almost anything else out there.
That's true.
And I can see how that could wear you down.
Yes.
But I know there's people that really, it gets really rough at a lot of these studios, but maybe I'm wrong because, I don't talk to everyone who works at them, but I also get a sense that when they've accomplished it and when they've made it, I mean, it is that creative drive. A lot of these places, people, I mean, I heard this with Borderlands. I may have even heard this with Uncharted 2. People sneaking in on the weekends to do extra work because they want to put something in the game they care about.
Right.
So, I mean, it is an ebb and flow. I think a place like EA is a little bit more like a factory.
Yeah.
Or at least was.
Not as valued,
Let
the
me say
individual.
was. Whereas, these more at least semi-autonomous, if not fully autonomous, dev houses seem to have a different type of cultural and working environment.
Would we feel differently about all this if the game was bad? Yes.
Yeah.
we might.
The thing is,
yeah.
they put out an exceptional
They-
game.
But like
That's
you
the
worked those
thing.
people to the bone for crap.
Exactly. Like
We hate you.
If the game had come out and it had been terrible, you've been like, this story I think would have been. I think people would have felt very differently about this
I mean,
story.
yes, it's like it's not like it's not like working on Avatar or
Exactly.
Titanic or one of the later James Cameron productions.
It's easy to talk about people that are like super dedicated to what they're doing and they're working a million hours because they love it so much.
They can hurt
But then there's a
sometimes,
guy that his job is to design the textures that go into the rocks, and his job is not perhaps very creative and not perhaps very inspiring. And that guy is just the guy that you hire, and maybe you can't work him for 100 hours.
Well, and I think some of the problem is those goalposts move. You have one division of a team, and this if you read those postmortems in Game Developer Magazine, it's that when they're not working in harmony, one group starts to do something that has a ripple effect on all the other teams. I mean, a lot of it also does come down to leadership, because I think with a strong leader, people will get in line and will do a lot more because they feel it's for something.
Yeah. I think an empathetic leader would have been lovely.
Well, if Brendan McNamara was out like golfing while these guys were on Saturdays, I would have felt much more sympathetic to the workers. But he was, according to him, and who are we to say he's true? He's working just as hard.
I'm glad he's working just as hard, but that attitude of like, well, you should feel
these
like
checks don't sign themselves, people.
That doesn't curry favor with it's
because the response is, well, you should be lucky to have someone like me doing this because I'm a really talented guy, or whatever the response would be. No, I'm not talking of myself, of course.
Game developer self-esteem, it's a fragile thing.
But I mean, and I think the other is this is a very new industry, and that look, one thing we don't see in the movies, to just look at a comparable, pop art commercial, area, you don't see innovation happening in the movies. In fact, there's probably anything that happening. What we do expect, and we seem to get, is some degree of always upping the ante from game to game to game. And I think that just is going to precipitate the sense of having to work harder because you're always kind of working in some degree of the unknown.
And if you're not going to do it, someone else absolutely will. So you got to do it.
Will.
Yeah.
So changing gears quite a bit. Kevin, you went to Vegas?
I went to Vegas.
Because everyone loves Vegas in July.
Yes, where it was 106. It rained one day extremely hard for an hour and a half. You couldn't see. We went outside 15 minutes after. Like? It was like it never rained. It was like walking into a giant sauna.
It was still dry.
Yeah, it was dry.
I've been in New Orleans in August when it rains, and that is just it's like living inside of a sock.
It's horrible. It sticks to you.
Thankfully, it didn't smell quite as bad as that. But
Vegas is the worst place. Oh my god!
I was there for Sony Online Entertainment's Fan Fair, which they have every year. It's their big community event. It's kind of like BlizzCon, but on a smaller scale.
It used to be just kind of EverQuest Con, wasn't it?
Right.
And then EverQuest kind of dipped. They had more properties, and then the far more sexier SOE title was applied to the.
It's still far and away EverQuest. Everyone there was an EverQuest player, EverQuest 2 player. But they did have some substantial announcements this time around.
I have to ask, and not to mock, because if you're into it, you're into it. Do EverQuest fans feel a little defensive that they have to really kind of explain themselves and why they still maintain the loyalty?
I bet they're very passionate.
They're extremely passionate. I don't think, probably not at Fan Fair where they're among their kind, but maybe in the real world. Like, why are you still playing this game?
When a press interloper such as yourself finds you.
A couple of people that we interviewed did seem slightly defensive, maybe. Like when we asked, like, well, what's your character? What do you play? They're like, well, what do you want to know?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like when an NPR reporter talks to someone who's supporting Michelle Bachmann.
Exactly.
Oh. You got to come at it from a fight. It's a fight from the start.
Why would you vote for this woman? Idiot.
I had to throw an EverQuest CD-ROM into the trash years ago because the guy that I was with was playing it so much, and I'm very tolerant.
You threw it away.
Playing it so much
you
that
threw these out?
I left it in the case. It was just symbolic. Like I was like, this is what we're having.
Well,
to do
it's now available as a digital download. So. Ex-boyfriend of Emily's.
I always thought about making a small fort and a shack I could live in out of Anarchy Online boxes that they were always handing out at every single convention I went to.
That's right.
I could have done that with some Pirates of the Burning Seas boxes. But anyways, they announced PlanetSide 2, which is a sequel to their 2003 game, which almost everyone on the panel, and John Smedley, who's the president of SOE, said was a game that came before its time.
Well, before, it was the best idea that had no hope in hell of being realized with the technology of the era.
Modems were still kind of common.
First-person shooter. It was more or less war.
Yeah. And you played with live people. There were no AI. There was no AI in the game.
Yeah.
And you had if there was a tank, you had to man it up to 3 people to get it to full power. Otherwise, you were just driving it around, not able to shoot. It was truly war in a video game.
But I think the other thing that we learned, and this is true of most MMOs, but if you're doing kind of a shooter-oriented MMO, you have to have people to have a game. Yep. And it's really, there's a real big kind of risk that you're running. So
it looks pretty cool. It sounds ambitious. They're going to also they'll have land vehicles again, but now sea vehicles, air vehicles. It looks pretty cool. They didn't announce a date, and it feels like it may be far off. But the trailer they showed us looked pretty impressive. They also announced an expansion for EverQuest and an expansion for EverQuest 2, so they're really keeping those games alive.
Quick question on PlanetSide 2. Is that for PS3 and PC?
It is for PC. Well, we asked about PS3, and they said, next question. And then he kind of backtracked and went on to say,
so maybe it's more like a 2014 game?
We're looking at things. If they port it to both for the PS4, But it sounds like they're trying to bridge that gap because they did it successfully with DCUO, and people seem to be responding to that. Speaking of DCUO, they also announced a new expansion for that. This is the first piece of DLC, which is interesting for the game. If you subscribe to that game, you get all the updates for free, and there's a massive Fortress of Solitude one coming at the end of the summer, and it's included with your subscription. But this Green Lantern expansion, you have to pay for. It's $9.99, and people are kind of complaining, like, I'm subscribing to this.
Well, on the heels of
Shouldn't
the
it be
success
free?
of the movie, I think people should be paid
why
double
wouldn't
that.
They probably jacked up
Lining
the
up.
I
price
want the
'cause of
Ryan
movie.
Reynolds experience. I can't wait for the whole mix-up, shake-up movie.
Is he in the
next.
expansion?
Yeah, he comes with the expansion. He comes and delivers it to you.
Yeah, off of his
Hi,
abs.
Ryan
He
Reynolds.
rolls it off of his abs right
Hi,
into your
I'm
hand.
Green Lantern. They'll animate my suit later. It's fine. It's fine.
We also had there was a sexy pool party.
And they hired like babes for the pool party.
They had
That's
a
an
couple of
EverQuest
booth
really?
babes, but there were no pool party babes, sadly, because I probably would have predicted
That's
I,
that.
really
to be
EverQuest
honest, I
player.
don't think I've been in a party where babes were hired since back when 3DO was publishing.
Oh God!
And yeah, it was like Trip Hawkins was there. They were showing off a Requiem Avenging Angel. I was this is very early on in my career. And this girl was pretty attractive came up and was talking to me about the game. I was talking to her. I'm like, this is cool. And then I went to another game and a different girl came up and started talking to me about the game. And I'm like, yeah. And then I went home and,
That's what I love is that people know exactly what buttons to push. They know what
Oh,
they're
yeah.
doing.
It's just, I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
I'm the kind of guy that, when I was single and I would go to strip clubs, it was with this sense of defeat about me when I would go across the threshold. So
Your head is hung down like Charlie Brown.
Oh, no one will talk to me tonight. Might as well pay for it.
This is why the
Okay.
discussion we were having about why nerdy porn stars do so well.
Yeah,
that's why.
okay, there it
Wait,
is.
there are nerdy porn stars?
There are a ton. That's like the new thing.
Whoa.
It's like, I'm such a geek. Like, that's what
Oh,
porn
man,
stars
I
do
love
now.
it
Yeah.
already.
And I was saying that, like, I don't
I'm in.
particularly care whether a porn star is a nerd, but
But
I
it makes
do.
them more accessible.
I
Because
think
then
the
you're
whole
like,
point is when I watch a porn, which I don't,
which I never
I
have.
don't really want to encounter interest outside of the core one.
Well, but
Because
see-
that's part of the fantasy, isn't
But that's
it?
all the porn stars are on Twitter now, and they're all like, "Hey guys, follow me on Tumblr. I love Doctor Who. Like, it's a huge thing now."
Give me an example. I want one example.
April O'Neil.
All right.
That's
Oh, wait, from the
speaking
Ninja
of-
Turtles?
Exactly. She named herself April O'Neil.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's low.
That's
By
her
the
whole
way,
thing.
you'll be able to see April
You know
O'Neil
what? No,
very
there's
soon
something
playing Connect
vaguely
Fun Labs on our
genius
site.
about it.
That's right.
Is that right?
Yeah, that
she's
is true.
great. She's a fantastic
No,
girl.
she's
Nothing
great.
against
And
her,
she's
but it's a
terrific.
new thing now.
Yeah.
Is nerdy porn stars.
Oh, man, who
Pool
knew?
party.
Oh,
I
boy.
learn something new every day.
Back to
All right,
the-
well, we're glad you're back, and you're back in time to enjoy Carmageddon.
Yes, I'm so excited.
And really get to enjoy Carmageddon during what would traditionally be called the Summer Games Drought. But let's first, we've seen some things come in. I'm going to read something from Chandler here. And he's saying it's not like good games have not released this summer. There's L.A. Noire. That was May. Do you think May's summer?
Nobody does.
Yeah.
He's stretching.
Infamous 2, first week of June.
Yeah.
Shadows of the Dam, which I'm still iffy on if I want to call it good.
What
but
about
there's-
Red Faction Armageddon? When did that come out?
Oh, that,
That was
June.
late May, I
Was it
believe.
late May? I thought it was June.
It was
You
right
know what?
around
No,
E3
it was
that I
it was
didn't
the
notice it.
same day as Infamous 2.
But it's
E3 week.
He's saying From Dust is coming out. Plus, there's DLC for LA Noire, Dragon Age 2. Is this a summer drought? I don't think this is the worst. But there is a sense.
You know, when you're naming From Dust, a
And
downloadable
DLC.
weirdo title, you
Yeah.
know, like
I mean,
can't really.
I'm finding myself very hard. I'm trying to go back to old games, and I can't seem to re-engage. I mean, I think the drought isn't just the lack of games,
Ooh.
but that it's somehow affecting my ability to just kind of want to go out and sit down.
See,
and,
the drought
and
is
play a
within.
game.
Maybe
Is
it's
the
an
drought
internal
within?
drought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Drought Within. It sounds like an art film that's coming out.
I like it.
Inside.
Yeah, actually, I'm thinking this. It's like Nicholas Roeg is going to direct it.
Yes.
I'm going to be out in the desert. Oh, hold on. Julie Christie's there. Oh, here comes Donald Sutherland.
fresh
I got
off
to put my
your,
glasses back
Donald
on.
Sutherland.
That's Adam, fresh off his performance in The Arcadian, which I still need to see then.
I know. I actually need to talk to the director and get a copy. We will have our official screening here. So, I mean, is this a drought?
It feels like a drought to me, but then I continually look and think about games like Trenched, which I've really been getting into, which is great 4-player co-op, by the
All
way.
of my friends are playing that. I'm the only one
It's
not
so
playing
much.
it.
You got to get it. It's so
Yeah.
much fun. And then there's the whole Summer of Arcade, which is, it's all DLC titles, but there's some good stuff. But yeah, if you're talking about a AAA experience where you're going to be engrossed in that game for a few weeks, it is definitely a drought.
Well, how about this is something that does, it always shocks me during the drought. And I guess I might as well read Godhand's, question here, not the game. or the hand of God.
No, not the hand
Remember
of
the
God.
spank-
There's
spanking
no
you could do
force
in that?
majeure here,
dude.
kids.
Just a dude.
Why aren't more companies taking advantage of the summer games drought by squeezing out more of their existing games? Isn't now the time to release DLC content rather than compete against flashy new titles later in the year? I want to incorporate that, but it's also there are games that came out, but they're also not marketed.
Yeah.
That when you look at all the movie marketing that can whip people into a frenzy to see movies that really at the end of the day suck.
Yeah.
Green Lantern.
It
Oh,
works.
sorry.
Why aren't, even if you have a more middling title like Alice or, or Red Faction.
Or
I mean,
Shadows of the Dam.
you could
Yeah.
try to turn it into an event
Put
because,
some oomph
because people
behind
are. That's the part that it's almost like the game industry concedes. The best excuse I've heard, which I don't think is a very good excuse, or at least doesn't explain away all of it, is that games are international, and you can't do it with Europe.
Oh, that's
Because
right,
as we
America.
were just talking about earlier,
We're
see that?
America.
They get those 6 weeks of vacation, and they actually do things with their vacation.
What?
Like go to the
No.
beach, turn off their phones, lather themselves up in olive oil,
That
and
sounds terrifying.
Olive
from,
oil.
like, the-
Nice.
They
Was it
do.
what
It's
they
always
do?
olive oil. They put it in. Yeah, that's true.
they go to the Isle of Corfu, Pink Palace.
Sounds awesome.
Sorry, I'm having
It's
memories
always
of
a
being
cool
young.
name.
I just have memories when I was a kid. Before I knew when games were coming out, I just knew I wanted this game. Of summer being, I stay up as late as I want and I play video games and until I can't play them anymore and I fall asleep. I pass out. I wake up the next morning. I do it again.
God, that's what I do now.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but that's what it is for me now because I'm remembering what it was like when I was a kid,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I want, and I'm not getting it.
It is funny. I mean, and once again, the movie industry is pretty consistent with releases throughout the year.
Absolutely.
The music industry, for the most part, is consistent with releases. Television's always on.
Well,
Well,
don't you remember a couple years ago?
reruns, in
They
summer.
said the industry said we're going to make a concerted, and I think it may have been just one publisher or a couple, but they were like, we're going to make a concerted effort not to cram everything into the holiday period because it's too crowded.
Right, and then it came out
Everything's
at the beginning of the
competing.
year.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
pushed it
Which is
over,
the
they
thing,
dribbled it
and
over.
then they cannibalize themselves there, and then
Yeah.
there's just this.
Yeah,
there's
why
this
not
summer
just
thing.
tent pull it out throughout the
I
year?
bought
I've
a
never
secondhand
understood
Wii
that.
yesterday, you guys.
Why?
Why?
That's what I'm saying. Well, somebody was like $20. I'm trying to get rid of it. I'm
That's
moving.
the strangest form of retail therapy I've ever heard of.
That's what
I'm going to get a redundant item at
never
a discount
played-
price used.
I started Super Mario Galaxy last night though, and
Well,
it's,
that's a
it's
good game.
great.
That
That's,
is a
I
good
wanna
game.
play
That's a
that and
great
the
summer
Zelda
game.
game. Yeah, exactly. So
The
I'm like,
second one is great too.
this
so.
is what I want to do because I don't have anything else. That's how far I've gone. I
Yeah.
bought a Wii yesterday.
Well, it's true.
Maybe
I've
the
started
game
playing.
industry is trying to tell us to ride our bikes once in a while.
Screw that game
Screw
industry.
you.
I was watching
Get out of my
Anthony Bourdain's
legs.
No Reservations last night, where he goes to Cuba, and they're showing these young kids, 9 and 10-year-olds, playing baseball, and like some of these kids were really good.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the fastballs they were throwing were incredible, and I thought, yes, in the land without television or video games,
Absolutely.
Get
you
really
might
good at
actually
baseball.
get some good athletes. So we need to figure out what games to talk about. We're kind of SOL on that. So we have found some games that really have tickled our fancy.
Sure.
I don't know where my fancy is,
But
it
it's being
got
tickled.
It got tickled.
Ooh.
I think. I mean, and you guys can jump in here. I mean, I would say that they're very portable.
Absolutely.
They're 3D and fully interactive. They-
Real time
Strategy.
strategy, turn-based
I
strategy.
mean, you don't even need a fancy doodad to know that moving your arm is going to affect how you play the game.
And great co-op. A lot of good co-op. Absolutely.
Actually,
yeah.
they're very co-op heavy,
Yeah.
and I mean some multiplayer as well.
I'd say there's a little bit of
multiplayer.
dexterity involved as well. So.
So I'm going to talk about the first one that I found. We're going to go around. So it's got down here, Candyland. Now this is not the Candyland that I remember because this guy.
Those cartoons, those faces
What
were not nice.
I mean, really, kids. That's what happens when you eat too much candy.
What
You
happened
get
to
an
his
handicapped nose, and you just get this
Candy
kinda
cane body.
homicidal
Who else has
grin.
that nose? Why does he have it?
Well, he's a drunk.
Right.
He is absolutely hopped up on so much processed
He looks
sugar.
like a hobo.
God.
Anyway,
I
it's
gave that to my
really
child.
simple. I really don't know what the story is.
Rethinking that decision.
Because, to be fair, ever since I was a kid, there never really been a clear story. It primarily, you start here and you end here.
Yep, that's the story.
And you move around. There's no dice. There's no counting
No
necessary.
dice.
You get cards like this that say blue.
Oh yeah.
Yep, so
And
you
you
go to the next
move
block.
I remember this
to
now.
the next blue. But sometimes you get these really exciting ones. See if I can find one in here.
Now, do those cost extra? Those cards, or they come with the game?
No, this is not
Those
a
are not.
trading thing.
Those are
There's
not
no
DLC
value.
booster
no.
packs. No.
Okay.
So
That's good. That's a good deal, you guys.
this girl who really should be wearing something a little bit longer in the hem.
She has a leg spread
Her name
open?
is Lolly.
Oh, even better.
Yeah.
Look
I
what
think
you've
there
done.
might be more to this game than
You can
I
jump
thought.
ahead to spots right there. I'm actually, I have not seen a modern version of this. Okay, so anyway,
I think I smell up Candyland porn coming in.
I'm bringing this up because I did play this as a child, and even as a child, it kind of struck me as kind of stupid.
Sure.
Stephen, you have children. Do they
I
play
do. I have
Candyland?
a child. What's that?
I mean, even by a 3-year-old status, this is a game that I would go on a message board and go, it's kind of linear.
Yeah, he doesn't. He's not.
You were on
He's
message
not
boards
into
with
it.
It's got
He's
pretty
not into
colors.
Candyland.
When you're super young,
Little
all you
kids
want are
love
bright colors,
Candyland.
yeah.
Little kids.
Also, they're making a movie adaptation of
That's
this.
crazy.
good.
Yeah.
With
And they
him?
already,
Yeah.
they already
With
did.
him?
They made an
I don't
animated
know
film.
if
We can
him.
only hope.
Yeah.
I mean, is Eli Roth directing it? Because then I might go see it because that scares me.
They're doing a couple of the Ouija board's getting a movie adaptation. Candyland's getting a movie
Battleship.
adaptation. Battleship's
The
getting
Ouija
an adaptation.
board.
Monopoly.
Ouija board?
Isn't that
And
called?
Monopoly.
Which board?
Isn't that the Craft with what's her face from
Yeah,
Party of
Veruza
Five?
Balk. Oh, you went Nev Campbell. I went
Nev-
Veruza Balk.
yes.
Well, no,
Nev.
Nev Campbell. That's
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
totally,
and
yeah.
it's.
Take my scars. Take my. Anyway, that's a craft reference. It's
Nice.
Actually, it was when I caught that
Nerdy.
movie on cable that I finally realized I was much older than I thought I was because I was like, "Whoa, this."
If you were a goth girl in high school when that movie came
See,
out,
that's what
you
I mean.
hated that movie completely because I was like, those guys. Where did they get their?
But didn't you want to
That's
change your
totally
hair just by
inaccurate.
running your change your
course
hair
I
color
did.
just by running your hand over?
I can, Kevin.
you know what? No, I just want to get the hair by running. Just think about it. Oh my God! Now I
Look
look like I
where
play
it
for an
means.
Argentinian, soccer team.
So you were not a fan of Candyland even growing up? But
No, it really struck me as kind of. I liked Sorry.
Sorry.
Because there was a sense that there might be strategy there, though I don't think so. And then there's the big conundrum that I think we all as kids theoretically play Monopoly, not really understanding how complex the rule set is. For
Oh,
that.
we had
Sure.
fights over Monopoly. It
Very.
got bad. Like
Yeah.
people get angry.
You know, there's that key rule where if you land on a property and you don't buy it, it has to go up for auction.
I had
Yeah,
no
nobody
idea.
plays with
Yeah.
it.
Everybody
Nobody
has
plays
their
with
own
that rule.
Monopoly rules. When you
It's like-
play with people, you find
Free
out.
parking.
Yeah.
It's like when you were a
Um,
kid, you never did the encumbrance rules in D&D.
That's right.
But I play. I'm a
carrying way
purist
too
in
much.
Monopoly. I'm from Atlantic City, where it's based, and we play Monopoly by the rules.
I've never
Nice.
heard of anyone
$500 for free
taking that
parking. There's
stance.
none of that nonsense.
Monopoly.
I'm
not
proud of
something
my
to made up.
hometown Monopoly.
How much is free parking?
Nothing. You don't get free
Atlantic City?
parking. Why would you get money? Because you can park somewhere for free. It's ridiculous.
If you break it down,
nonsense.
it does make sense.
Yeah.
So I agree. Yeah, it's-
Steve, what game have you brought in?
Well, I brought in a turn-based strategy game, and it's got 3D graphics right out of the box. It's co-op. There's no single-player campaign. It's only 2 players.
Oh.
And as far as I know, there's no plans for DLC. But I'm talking, of course,
Is
about
it the Adventures of Cookie and Cream?
Checkers.
You're
No,
so
it's
close.
checkers.
Yeah,
so
checkers
Classic.
is one player plays black and the other player plays red.
Oh, wait.
What does that mean?
Hold on.
Well-
okay, I got it.
Who's good, who's bad?
It's like Les Miserables in
Can
a
you
board game.
choose which side, and that determines the story, how the story goes,
Well,
depending on which?
In a sense, if you want to make up the story, see here are the red checkers, as you
Oh.
can see, and here are the black checkers. And the graphics are really good, but the character designs could use a little bit of work.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not the most evocative character
is there a
designs.
crown on
And,
each of those? That's-
there's
Well,
kinda like a
those
Final
units work
Fantasy
pretty
kind
well
of,
together.
Wait,
They work together.
are the units the same?
The units all have the same power, which is kind of like one of the both strengths and weaknesses of the game because.
But can you upgrade at all?
Yes, that's the thing. That's
Oh,
where it gets
oh.
kind of. This is where the hook of the game comes in. It's got that sort of Final Fantasy thing where if you get to a certain point in the game, you can totally transform your character into one that's twice as powerful. And that character is called the King, baby.
Wow.
The King.
That's pretty cool.
Steve knows about King.
And then what happens?
And then
Everybody jumps everybody.
and then somebody hits the board accidentally,
Somebody
and
hits the board, knocks
people
the
get
checkers
angry.
over.
That's a
Everybody
table-
gets
that's a table
tired and
flipper.
decides to
That's a
play
table
something
flipper.
else, and then they grow up and play chess.
Have you guys ever assumed that like the guy who came up with checkers like got beaten a lot in chess?
Oh yeah, for sure. He's like, I don't get all the rules.
Fine, I'm gonna get a game that I can
I
play.
like moving in squares, but I don't like remembering.
remember.
Why are they
how
all
the
different?
knight works.
Rook and knight and bishop. I want it all the same. Yeah.
It's a great game,
And the
though.
King.
But there was a guy below him who then invented tic-tac-toe because he was pissed off at
Yeah,
checkers.
he was,
Yeah.
Ooh,
Checkers
good
is
point.
And then you know what?
hard.
The guy who couldn't win a tic-tac-toe, he made Candyland.
Full circle.
God, this guy scares me. Turning it upside down.
He's still
Oh,
there.
that poor
Adam,
guy.
he's still there.
Oh no!
I thought you meant the guy outside the window.
Oh, really? If your kids are playing Candyland now, write in. Let me know how they're doing. Kevin, what do you have?
I got something that has political intrigue,
Ooh.
mystery, murder, artificial beings, space travel, galactic combat. It's very exciting. It's not exactly portable, however, because you're going to be very laden after you play this.
That's a
First
lot
of all,
stuff
you got to start with Battlestar Galactica.
Oh, it's a real game.
I
The
want to
board
guess
game.
Edward James Olmos.
Then you got to get the Pegasus expansion because it's badass and it adds an entire new ship to the game and new characters. Then
Pegasus, that-
you got to
that was
get
in
the,
the-
Exodus
Oh my
expansion
God.
because it adds even more. You get a Cylon-based ship that you can board in this one. There's a lot going on.
That's actually
right
probably
here.
more expensive than a video game. There's 3.
It actually is
For
more
sure,
expensive.
yeah.
I
These
could use all
retail for
three
like
of those
$59.
as the foundation for my Anarchy Online tent hut.
You want to like
59?
hold down the base
Can
corner?
we see what's inside? I'm kind of excited.
Yes.
I don't want to mess up any of your stuff, but
Well, that's what you always say, and then everything gets destroyed, right? Well,
is that what I always say?
well, Battlestar, the board game. This is a new copy, by the way, which I haven't played. But you have a giant rule book, which you got to parse through. You got your little cardboard tiles.
This
and
Well, that
everybody
doesn't look
loves
like you
those.
played it.
I have, but this is a new copy that I just got. Then you got your character cards, tons of little ships. Look at that.
That's the
Cylons,
important part. If without a choking hazard, it's not a game.
That's right.
bases for ships, cards.
So, I mean, does it follow the logic of the TV show?
It does. It follows the logic of the show, and you, at the beginning of the game, could be a Cylon or a human. And if you're a Cylon, you're not exactly supposed to reveal that soon. You can. It's up to your
that's fun.
strategy. But you could, at any point during the game, if you're playing it a human, get a card during subsequent hands that says you are a Cylon. And you suddenly find out you're a Cylon. It changes the way you're playing.
amazing.
But you could keep that secret and try to, make the humans screw up a few times.
I mean,
and
do you get other
subterfuge.
cards like you're a Cylon, but you keep on doing that human? It makes for good TV.
Yeah, make some sexy Cylon babies. It is. You have to keep track of your fuel, your food, your morale,
super
your
fun, yeah.
population. It's a great game.
But you don't get to play like characters.
No, you do play the characters. You play Adama. You play Gaius Baltar. You play all the characters from the
Starbuck.
show. They're all in there.
Really?
there
I
a
mean, do
role
you
play?
have to do things as close to the character? Like you'd be like fracking Cylons.
You can
God,
talk
I-
you can talk like
What
Saul
was his
Ty
name?
if you want to.
Fracula?
Ty.
Who was that? The angry drunk?
Saul Ty.
God, I love Ty.
Colonel Ty.
That was just Colonel Ty was just
Yeah, each one of the characters has their own card, and they have different abilities. And you don't have to play them as they were in the show, but you can't help but do it because
Sure,
everyone loved it.
absolutely.
It's a great
Alright.
game. Highly recommend it.
And Emily.
Well, I thought this was a show about video games.
What?
Such to be you.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, God.
So I actually chose Missplosion Man, which comes out on Wednesday, the day the show airs, and it's fantastic. It's so I don't have any.
I
fun
mean,
things to show
I
you
love
guys.
the guys who
don't
made
explode?
Misplaced Man.
Pixel?
Obviously, they made them
Yeah.
all. Twisted Pixel. I mean, and I've gotten sense. I saw some people playing it here in the building. It is beautiful.
It's gorgeous and it's really fun and fast paced. It's just as clever. It's more clever even than the first one. You play a girl version of Splosion Man, hence the Missplosion Man, and she sings the entire game as she's just running around. Like Salt and Pepper songs, Spice Girl songs. I caught the Where Have All the
Twisted
Cowboys
Pixel
Gone?
got themselves a budget.
Yeah.
My.
I mean, I think if
She's
you just
very
seeing
pop
a snippet,
culture minded,
very
yeah.
pop culture. She wears heels. She has like
A bow in her hair.
But more than that, that game is really good for what my friend calls Nintendo, which is that moment where you're so in that you feel like you're connected to a game where you're not even responding.
I like it.
It's like your brainstem is
It's,
just going.
it's kind of like the last Pac-Man game from,
Yeah.
from December.
Oh, the Championship Edition DX,
Or
whatever.
Or when I
Totally
play
awesome.
pool and I have only 2 beers in me.
yeah,
Yeah,
just that
you get
perfect
3.
thing.
You can't play
That's
3.
the
You
right
can't.
balance.
You can't
And you
play.
have 1 and you're overthinking it.
Because you stop thinking
I
about
thought that
it.
was just
Cute.
me.
I
And
like
I
this.
just watched The Hustler. I don't know how fast Eddie does it. They drank all night long. It's incredible.
He conditioned himself to do them. A lot of
I
drinking.
guess so. He's
Wait,
smokeless.
did you
Splosion Man is
try
hard.
in Missplosion Man? There's a mode called Two Girls, One Controller.
Nice job, guys.
Oh my
Way
god,
to go.
it's 2 people and you're playing both on the same control. It is. Me and Jake tried it
Mind-numbingly
yesterday.
hard.
It is hard.
Yeah,
as
Do you have
it's
photos
so
of that?
horribly hard.
It's not safe for
And the
the
co-op.
I want
internet.
photos of you two doing that in a pool.
And then we get reaction shots of people watching us like,
And I mean, it's got the single player is completely different than the co-op because I play both. The co-op is fairly difficult too this time around, but the single player is just a joy. It's
Well,
an
it sounds like
amazing
it's a
game.
little more forgiving than the first Explosion Man, but they've also gotten more. It's even more complex in terms of the
much more
level
complex,
design.
and there's all kinds of new. There's like a zip line now. There's all kinds of new mechanics that they've added, but still,
Oh.
this
oh, you can jump
floating.
into the fat lady character. You can actually jump into her and inhabit her and make her walk around.
There's so much. Yeah, it's really great. So
Are zip lines the solar flare of 2012?
they really are. They're the new hot,
lines,
the
yeah.
new hotness for
between
sure. Yeah.
obviously Explosion Man and Bioshock Infinite.
Well, Call of Duty has them now all
That's
over the
right.
place. The
Oh,
new
really?
Uncharted 3
and Assassin's
multiplayer
Creed
beta
doesn't-
has it.
Yeah.
in it.
Assassin's
Sending
Creed
for
has it
this
too
too.
with the
That's
hook
right.
thing. Yeah. So I don't have any fancy board game, but download. Miss
Yeah,
Version
you're
Man, it's
all
great.
analog. Stop there with the
Crazy.
You
digital
guys are
game.
so old.
Oh my god.
I like Miss Explosion Man. I was playing it upstairs with the great Jake Gaskill, and we were having a lot of fun playing it. Although
so
it's
fun.
hard. It's really,
hard.
really hard. Like, it's very difficult.
right up my alley.
It's a nice
perfect game for me.
follow-up to that Outland game from Ubisoft. I mean, there seems to at least be just at the, when I'm done with one of those kind of old school platformers that are new, hey, there's another one that's out.
Oh,
so.
well, this is a good opportunity to link back to your soapbox from last week, I think, when you called Child of Eden a great summer game.
Yes.
That's a game that people could pick
great-
up during this drought
Sure.
and
Yes.
give it a whirl and everything.
I highly recommend it. It is. I'm amazed at how challenging that game is and how not frustrated I am by it.
Oh, that's cool.
Just because it's just kind of like, oh, look, pretty music.
Yeah, you
Although-
can Nintendo out to that music.
It's kind of good
Nintendo.
to let others in your apartment know, or whoever you're living with know that you're playing that, because when that trance music comes out, unless that's what you only listen to, quizzical looks
Really?
will be
They're
forthcoming.
like, are you wearing leather pants now, Adam? What's your
Yeah,
deal?
Is he going to Burning
your
Man
life?
this year?
Yeah,
What's your life
exactly.
about
I'm just
now?
like,
You've become this guy.
I got these glow sticks in this big Dr. Seuss hat.
Drink some orange juice. You'll be
I got
okay.
some vapor rub under my nose.
right here on the
fire.
back of your temples. Kids, you'll learn what that is once you go to college.
Exactly.
Stay away.
Drugs are
So
bad, okay?
I want to do one quick thing. Yeah, I think we have some time for this. I want to do a round robin. This is usually the time of year we're prognosticating and everyone's kind of getting together and there's this group think like, hey, this is going to be good, this is going to be bad. I must imagine that some of you guys have an opinion that runs to the contrary of the general thinking about the quality of a game or something else is coming down the line. Kevin, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I think everybody kind of feels the same way about Star Wars: The Old Republic. It's being touted as this gigantic game. EA's putting so much muscle behind it. People think it's going to be a WoW killer. I'm just like, after the time I've spent with the game, I'm kind of disappointed. I don't think it's going to be what they're promising us.
Oh, no.
But I do remember I used to play through The Force Unleashed, which was not a great game, by the way, but I played it a lot because I could immerse myself in the Star Wars universe, which is something I loved as a kid. If that game had came out when I was 12, I would have been like in, heaven forever. But it's out now, and it's one of those love-hate things where I'm like, I like the game, but it's broken and doesn't work in certain places. But SWTOR, I don't think is going to be able to offer me even that much
that's
Star
a shame.
Wars-ish isms to keep me happy. I hope I'm wrong. Believe me,
Right.
I want this to be a good game.
But that's where your healthy skepticism
That's where my
is.
skepticism lies.
Stephen Johnson.
Deus Ex, Human Revolution. Boom!
Oh, wow.
Huh?
Wait, is that good or
Yeah,
bad?
right.
Are you saying it's going to be good or it's going to be bad? 'Cause there has been
I don't
some
think it's going to be
skepticism.
good. I think it's going to be bad.
All right.
Yeah.
It's
Everybody's
just
freaking
a
out
gut
about
thing.
it. It's just a gut thing. I have no... I've seen it, and I was impressed, but my gut says, for some reason, no, it's not going to work. Like, it's going to have cool stuff, but it's not going to work totally.
All right.
All right. I kind of touched on this last week, and I've thought about it more. I'm skeptical on Battlefield 3. I have no question about its technical proficiency, but I still have not been able to get my head wrapped around why they showed the tank demo. And it seems to indicate, it makes me wonder if people working on the game, working around the game, see something cool and if they think really distinguishes it from the Call of Duty series, but really have forgotten to ask themselves, will this make for an exciting game? Because I have a hard time thinking that tank sequence would be any more fun to play than it was to watch.
Yeah.
And for them to decide to tear that out after an impressive demo earlier in the year and hold that up as here's our answer to the largest franchise out there, I just have become very skeptical as to what's actually in this game.
So you think they're too worried about making themselves so different that they're not making a good game? Is that what
Well,
you're saying?
or that it won't be the sum of the parts.
Yeah.
I mean, one can always find problems with the single player in Call of Duty, but there is a sense of pacing. There's a sense of, excitement and stuff like that. Is usually, I find, after the fact, I start to have some sort of questions as to whether or not that was the best decision. I do wonder if this could be, if it's filled with good intentions, but, to do something as radical as they're claiming they're doing, they may not be able to know that does that actually make for a fun experience in terms of a game.
Well, I played the multiplayer demo at E3, and
I'm not commenting on multiplayer.
I did
Yes.
love that, but I've rewatched that tank demo, and I see what you mean, and
It's knowing what Call of Duty would show off
That's what you chose
to then
do.
choose this to be kind of like, yeah, this is our response to that is one of
It
the
felt
more
like they were
curious
trying really hard
decisions
for
ever.
like a grown-up, sexy kind of like, but I didn't. It just. It
I
kind of
mean,
bored me.
more or less, I was like, I'm now thinking I'm going to be playing Jarhead.
Yeah.
I mean,
Aw.
Jake Gyllenhaal's in that
you
movie.
know, hopefully I'm wrong, but I mean, right now, it's up to EA and DICE to actually show me that my misgivings are not misplaced.
And that's the thing for all these. We want you to prove us wrong. Like, we want the games to be good.
Sure.
All of us.
Yeah,
do.
we never
Yeah.
want
I
games
mean,
to be bad.
Not me. No, I'm kidding. Of course
Steve
I
loves
do.
those bad games.
I mean, no, I think at the end of the day, it should be pointed out that nothing is more satisfying than having a good game. Nothing is even more satisfying than not knowing you have a good game and finding out it's a good
Absolutely.
game.
Being surprised
So,
is the best.
It's good. Well, surprises will always await, especially when we head down to Comic-Con. Next week, San Diego Comic-Con.
Comic-Con
I refer to
Live.
it as the world's largest petting zoo, of which I am a goat. So I will be eating tin cans and having my ass slapped by 5-year-olds for your entertainment and enjoyment. Yet the three of you, I believe, will be working hard, covering things and keeping the world informed about everything that happens, of which there is quite a bit.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And dressing up.
But you guys are gonna be X-Playing live from Comic-Con.
We'll be explaining
First
live
time ever.
Thursday, first time ever. I believe that is from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern. That's on Thursday. There's also an X-Play panel earlier on that Thursday.
that'd be cool.
I'll also be moderating a host of panels for Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning,
Nice.
for Gears of War 3,
Nice.
Wow.
and for Assassin's Creed
Look at
Revelations.
you.
Because if I'm not moderating, I cease to exist. And
So true.
well, that's what's about to happen.
Video games!
Hi, I'm Blair Butler, and if you like comics or you watch the Fresh Ink segment on Attack of the Show, guess what? I review brand new comics every single week on Friday. Just go to g4tv.com/freshink and you'll have comics galore, a virtual waterfall of comics, although that would bend them and that would decrease their value, which is terrible.